In the previous video, we looked at how to evaluate different parts of a car based on their characteristic. In this video, we'll extract validation curves for different parameters like maximum depth and N estimators, and we'll also plot the graph for the same. In the last video, we used random forest to build a classifier in the previous video, but we don't exactly know how to define the parameters. In our case, we dealt with two parameters, N estimators and max depth. They are called hyperparameters, and the performance of the classifier depends on them. It would be nice to see how the performance gets affected as we change the hyperparameters. This is where validation curves come into the picture. These curves help us understand how each hyperparameter influences a training score. Basically, all other parameters are kept constant and we vary the hyperparameter of interest according to our range. Then we'll be able to visualize how this affects the score. So let's see how we can do this in Python. So in the same file, car.py, which we used in previous videos, add the following code. In this case, we define the classifier by fixing the max depth parameter. We want to estimate the optimal number of estimators to use, and so have defined our search space using parameter grid. It's going to extract training and validation scores by iterating from 25 to 200 in 8 steps. So let's run the code now and see the output. So we obtained the training scores and validation scores for N estimators. Now let's go back to our editor and plot it using a curve. So this is the code to plot the graph. Now let's move on to the command prompt again to see the graph. Here's the output for the training curve. Now let's do the same for the max depth parameter. Go back to the editor. This is the code we inserted to obtain the max depth parameter. So you can see the training scores and validation scores for max depth parameter. We fixed the N estimators parameter at 20 to see how the performance varies with max depth. Let's go to our editor and add the code for plotting the graph. So you can see here that we have added the lines to get the graph. Let's move to the command prompt. Now let's run the code and see the output. Amazing! We got the validation curve for the maximum depth of the tree. In this video, we plotted the graph different parameters by extracting validation curves. In the next video, we'll learn to extract learning curves in a similar way.